How's it going, everybody? I'm Lewis, and we've got the Elder Chaos Druid HUD and junk update from the Old School RuneScape team. So let's get straight in and have a look at the Elder Chaos Druid HUD. To go alongside with the Elder Chaos Druid robes update we had the other week, they're releasing the Elder Chaos Druid HUD. You'll get this by killing Elder Chaos Druids found at the Chaos Altar in the Wilderness. The Elder Chaos Druid HUD requires 40 magic to equip and provides +5 magic attack and +4 magic defense. As well as that, they've also recoloured the sash on the front of the Elder Chaos Druid robes to red instead of white to match the actual NPCs that are in game, because that's what the original brief was. I'm not entirely sure why they did release them with a white sash. Potentially they just thought that all red was a bit boring. Let's move on to bank junk. You can now go to your bank options interface and fill up your bank with junk. When you do this, every empty slot in your bank will be given a bank filler. Bank fillers are completely useless, they can't be withdrawn, but they take up your space. This is useful for players that want to use skilling methods such as pressing the deposit all inventory option or deposit all worn option, and they can only put in certain items. So for example, if they have an inventory full of runes, and you've got, say, water runes, fire runes, and earth runes, if they've only got earth runes in their bank and the rest of the bank is full, then the fire runes, and I think I said water runes, can't fully remember what I said 2 seconds ago. Anyway, those runes will stay in their inventory. This should just be a nice quick way of allowing for you to bank quicker in certain situations, if you choose. Next, the fishing trawler activity bar. To ensure everyone's doing their fair share at fishing trawler, they've added an activity bar. Players whose activity bar goes completely empty will be removed from the minigame itself. Obviously, if you want to remain in the game, make sure you take part in it, which means no boring players can just slack and do nothing in this minigame. Another advantage of this is the fact that Iron Men are now allowed access to this minigame. And for Iron Men, this has actually unlocked quite a few new features in game. For example, a clue scroll requiring the Angler's outfit is now available to Iron Men. The Ardoin Elite Diary no longer has Iron Men only tasks and non-Iron Man only tasks. It's all in Fishing Trawler. So if you are an Iron Man, this is actually quite a good update for you. The only real problem I have with this is I don't think they've implemented this correctly. When I was getting my footage for this video, I deliberately didn't really partake in the minigame, and therefore my activity was essentially 0. After the 12 or so minutes that the minigame takes, I was still on the ship, and as I got taken to the mainland, as you can see here, I was still able to claim a reward. So this appears to be broken. The next set of updates we've got address some changes for Last Man Standing. First of all, there's the tweaks to magic. The Aram's robes have been added as the top magic robes available. Infinity robes have been replaced with 3rd Age robes in the vending shrines. And they've reduced the cost of ancient tablets from 20 to 10. This should allow magic to have a bit more of a presence in Last Man Standing, allowing players to do a lot more damage with magic and giving you better access to ancient magics. Something I'm not really a huge fan of. Having 3rd Age robes in a minigame feels really weird. Personally, I think they should have kept it at the lower tier weapons, because what they've essentially done now is made a precedence for all the weapons and armour being added to Last Man Standing have to be the highest tier in the game, which to me is just a really weird way of testing all these weapons out before you actually go out and buy them. Some people might say that's a good thing, but really to me, I dislike that. In fact, I'd much rather them have actually created new items for this. They could have used the old graphics, but obviously if you say have a tier 1 weapon, a tier 2 weapon, a tier 3 weapon, all for mage, range and melee, I don't imagine that would have been much extra work. The next update to Last Man Standing is the items dropped to the player who deals the most damage. Originally, items were dropped to the player who dealt the final blow. This is no longer, and items now drop to the player who deals the most damage. And to make sure nothing weird happens when a player who's done the most damage has died, they've made it so that if a player that damages you dies, then all the damage that they've done is completely disregarded to prevent them from getting the drop when you die, despite the fact they're dead. This should deal with any issues where people were running away from a fight, so the person doing the majority of the damage doesn't get any loot. This is something I'm slightly skeptical about. However, if you are doing so much damage like this, then I suppose you do deserve to get a decent amount of loot. The other tweaks to Last Man Standing include the duration of the PJ timer has been increased by about 50%. The final 2 loot crate now appears in the final area rather than in the fog. Trading has been disabled within the entire minigame. The stepping stones crossing the river have been replaced with a bridge, making it much easier to cross that river. However, one could argue that's much less fun. and a western entrance has been added to the Trinity Outpost. Finally, this week in other news, we've got some bug fixes and some quality of life changes. The colour of uncharged orbs has been changed to look noticeably different from air orbs. The Slayer Cape perk will now work if the cape is in your inventory. Players can now repair all broken PvP items at the same time with Purdue or the PvP World Armor stands, making it much faster if you want to get into your PvP again. More deposit boxes have been placed around the world. Interface navigation now supports using number keys. So if you're using something like a tree gnome teleport, it will be much easier for you. The derived cost of the Abyssal Bludgeon prices has now been lowered. Coins dropped from the Morton pyres now remain on the stand for longer. And the value of Barbarian Soul eggs has been adjusted. This allows them to appear at the top of stacks of items. Effects and players no longer continue into games of Last Man Standing. The Ancient Staff can now autocast Ancient Magic in free-to-play Last Man Standing. However, I completely question why Ancient Magic is allowed inside free-to-play Last Man Standing. Nobles can no longer be thrown into the Last Man Standing lobby. A floating tree in Broomhaven has been grounded. The Music Cape now requires the Last Man Standing music track. Free-to-play will no longer see the updates of multi-stage achievements. Some items can no longer be taken into Barbarian Assault. They fixed the spelling error in the Zarmej achievement dialogue, and they fixed an issue with random event overhead dialogue. This week's update seems great. Lots of small quality of life updates from recent polls, and a fair few fixes for things like Last Man Standing and just general game updates. An additional thing I feel I have to mention at the moment, and I don't know if you would have noticed this, but it looks like the Old School RuneScape website has changed a little bit. They've separated out the links at the top of the website, so we've got a game section, a community section, and an account section. Hopefully this will make it a lot easier for us to navigate through the website. I also noticed that they have changed the Old School RuneScape high scores. It now includes Bounty Hunter Rogue, Bounty Hunter Hunter, and the Last Man Standing rank. Something which I think people have been asking for quite a while. However, it's a bit of a concern that they haven't polled this sort of thing. I'm sure no one would have a huge disagreement against it. However, it's nice to see that we actually get the polls so we can have this community game that Old School RuneScape is meant to be. If you want to discuss this update, please go on the forums or do so in my comments below. Let me know what you think of Last Man Standing, and let me know what you think of the changes to the website. Click here to watch my latest developer blog video on the Wintertodt rewards. And if you want to watch my video on the latest Old School RuneScape news post, please click here for third-party clients. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share, and if you want to keep up to date with the Old School RuneScape updates, step blogs and polls, please subscribe. I've been Lewis, thanks for watching, goodbye.